Alright, this recording is to show how we used to do benchmarking research at best practices and how we might be able to do this here at Upswing. So, first things first, this is the Excel spreadsheet that we would utilize. I'm starting with the survey tab, as you can see down here. What we would typically do is create our research based upon survey topics that we were performing. So this one in particular is called Benchmarking Regulatory Affairs, Staffing, and Performance. As I go through each of the different sections, the titles might change because I'm really working off of random information that I have left, not actually the full gambit. So you can start to see some of the questions that we asked. Some of the first parts were company overview information, mostly for classification purposes, as well as information that we could utilize to normalize some of the data. So revenue was important, percentage of revenue derived from medical device sales, etc. We also have things like where is the region at? So U.S., somewhere else in America, EMEA, etc., etc. All right, so that's the demographic information, which is the information that would likely compare with us to asking about someone's gender, race, age, income status, uh, family structure, all that sort of stuff. Then you actually get to the actual questions down here. And these questions are the questions that we're actually trying to use to find out certain types of information. So, how long have you worked at the company? Okay, so this information is still information about the respondent. But here's the actual information. So how's regulatory affairs structured? And there's 4 options here, 5 options. Does your company have multiple divisions? Does your company have a separate regulatory affairs group? These are all types of questions that are getting at issues that our ultimate client was very interested in. You go on even further, see several other questions, blah, blah, blah. You can see how all the questions are structured here. So, what someone who's receiving this survey would do is go through and answer each one of these, typically A, B, C, D, E type questions. Some of them would be open-ended responses, but mostly just A through E questions. Okay, that means that we then have that person's data. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. The columns 5 through 12 represent all of the data that we have on each person. So you can see how it comports here. The contact information, name, company, job title, etc. Then the various questions as they go through. Please estimate your company's annual revenue. Question 3, question 4. This continues going on all throughout the entire piece, going all the way to the right until we get to, I think there are maybe 50 questions total. Yeah, total of 52 questions. So you can see every question that was created. Okay, so what would happen is as new people were answering these questions, and this is actually one of our smaller surveys because it was for the medical device industry. There aren't too many medical device companies, so this only had 8 respondents. Typically are things that were, that everyone has, like marketing would have, maybe 100 responses or more, but this only had 8. So then we have this down here that we utilize. As you added a new row from 5 to 12, the count got higher here. So here you see 8 responses, and this would be how we would start to do our data. So we have the responses here, and then the count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 here all comported with how many times someone responded with A or the first answer, B or the second answer, 3 or the third answer, D or the fourth answer. And so those numbers would come down here. And so you can see some, like right here is 7 total responded to this one. 1 answered A, 1 answered C, 2 answered D, for example. And I'll show you why this is important later on. But there's also other things down here that we would do, such as what was the maximum number. And this is for things like question 2, where we're asking questions that they put in. It will show the maximum that was stated, the 75th percentile, the mean, the median, the 25th percentile, the minimum, standard deviations, and other things as well. So now what we have down here is all of the information that we need to know about a particular study. And this is going to be important because this is how we manipulate it all. Um, let's say that we wanted to, and this is such a small classification that we didn't really do any splits, but let's say we just wanted to deal with people who had more than $10 million in revenue. We could actually duplicate this chart, just go right here, make a copy of it, and then only insert into this area right here the numbers that were above 10 million, which would just be this one and this one in this case. So those were some of the ways in which we would create new subsegments of the same data. Once we had those segments, we created a tab called linked data. And linked data is basically where you would link it to PowerPoints. So you have each one of the questions, as you can see here. And as those questions have their answers set up, which all these answers are based upon our other charts. Our other tabs in here. So you can see how it's being populated here as an equal sign. So we created all of our charts for each one of the questions here. You can see it just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. All right, so then what happens is we'll take this data that you're seeing here and we'll create actual charts from it. And I'm about to show you what one of those charts looks like. Okay, so this is what the chart will look like. And typically we'll start with creating a main page and table of contents. And this one wasn't completely finished, but you can get the idea. This is just kind of an overview of what you're going to learn through the data, as well as which companies participated. We'll usually have a key findings slide, which will be some of the insights that we're learning. And then this is where we go through the questions. So each one of these charts here that you see are completely connected to that Excel spreadsheet. So if you change the Excel spreadsheet, it'll change here as well. And these are more of the chart variety, so these aren't as big of a deal. But here's one that would actually change if you change the numbers on that Excel spreadsheet. And you can see how it continues going on. So what you can see is that there isn't really a whole lot that needs to be changed to the structure. Yet people at a glance can get answers that they're looking at. So for example, the respondents, most of the people have been working in regulatory affairs for more than 15 years. If you're creating a new business, this is important to you because you're recognizing that you want to make sure you're having experience higher in regulatory affairs. Just as a caveat, regulatory affairs is a really big issue among pharmaceuticals, so they want to have people who are well versed. So here's some other things that someone could learn. Which entity do you primarily support? Corporate or one of the business operating units? Most of the people are only supporting corporate. So this might help someone decide what kind of structure they want to create. Into what organization level does the function report? This is the type of information which helps people say, okay, how are we going to structure our regulatory affairs? And the questions continue on like this. This is one where, it helps people understand what other folks in the industry are doing as well. So you can think about how in a closed-off industry such as education, information like this would be important as well. One of the things that we would also do, but which you don't see here, because this wasn't the finalized copy, is that these X's up here would usually be 2 to 3 lines of text about what you're learning as a result from this chart. So at any point in time, you could just take one slide and take it into your boss or someone who you need to justify information with. And that's actually what would happen. People would buy entire charts, but they're really only interested in one part. So once we finish all of our reports and we cut them up into different pieces, we would add them to our database. This is what the best practices database looks like for the client side. So a client may be interested in looking up new product launches. And that will be important to anyone who's interested in launching any product. So that they search the database. There's the ability to do advanced searches or wizard and analytic searches. But we'll just do a general search just to see what shows up. Okay, so these are some of the results that you would see. It looks kind of like what Google might look like. Each one has a link, and it will give you a short overview, the companies that are profiled as part of it, as well as sometimes an excerpt that you can look at. So you get to look through and see which one is most relevant to you. And what someone might be interested in, for example, is wanting to see, is there any studies, for example, on, let's say, Viagra? Let's see if there's anything in the database. Okay, so here we go. We have a case studies here. We have customer loyalty. You see all these different information that at one point or another is talking about Viagra. Here's one even talking about incentive compensation and sales. So I might be interested in this. I'll click on it. When I click on it, I find out a little bit more. See a snapshot of the information, even some of the findings. And then I might say, okay, this is what I want to utilize. And if I was signed in, there would just be a download button. But because I'm not signed in, I actually have to add the card and check out. But this is pretty much how people navigate our database. What would happen is the second they want to download it, they would just click it, and they would be taken directly to a report. And I'll show you what one of those reports looks like. So once they download it, this is what the report looks like. It's in PDF format. They get to see all the information that they're looking for. Once again, like we talked about, the table of contents, objectives, information like this. It definitely wasn't the prettiest in the world, but it provided them the information that they were looking for. Usually they wanted just a slide that they could take, like I said. And so that's what we were in the business of, was providing different types of consultative information that could help them. So it just kind of goes on and on. Like this might be important. This is one of the segments that we pulled out. So medical device segment. Even though we did a general segment, which I think you'll find up top somewhere, we did one specifically for medical device, where you can see the differences that occurred with some of the breakdowns. You even saw the device segment in Asia/BRIC countries, which would be interesting for people. So here you go. North America, clinical trials actually decreased by 58%. But in the Asia Pacific and emerging markets, it was increasing by 60 to 70%. So if you were in an emerging market, you'd be interested in learning more about this, whereas North America, you'd be learning more about the 58% decrease. This is how we'd be splitting our data as well. So this is in general how our system worked, and the way I see it working for Upswing is that we can create some of these same types of studies. If we're splitting it up in the way that we want them to be split up, it should be extremely beneficial and helpful to the people we're trying to sell it to. All right, well, thanks, and that's it.